Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
Happy Memorial Day to you, remembering all of those who served and died for this country's freedom and the ability to do what we want here in America. Thank you to all your service members. Obviously, we'll recognize you more on Veterans Day, but happy Memorial Day to you. Hopefully, you had a good weekend. We've got some interesting stuff coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on this Monday morning. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on to today. It is Memorial Day, Monday, May 30th, the year of our Lord 2022. At the very beginning there, I was almost going to say the outro, God bless America, and then realized that it was the beginning of the show. So that's why the was there. I'm excited to watch that back. We've got an interesting one for you today. Some stuff that... More on the Uvalde shooting. Also, some from the Disinformation Czar, which is interesting. And we've got a transphobia explainer, which I thought was hilarious is not the right term because it's probably wrong to make fun of somebody who clearly has a condition of some sort. But we've got that coming up. I want to get to this first. Joy Reid. Anybody familiar with Joy Reid's show? First things first, I have no idea who watches Joy Reid. I would imagine that in some cases, Joy Reid gets more viewership by us playing the ridiculous clips of her on her show than her actual show. But I don't know. I can't prove that. She was talking about the thing that I've been talking about for the last week since the Uvalde shooting. The refusal to talk about anything else besides guns isn't going to lead anyone anywhere good. Watch this from Joy Reid. This is a couple seconds, but again, it's indicative of the entire conversation, which is not good in actually solving any problems. Check this out.
Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight with Republicans just tying themselves into pretzels to point the finger at every single thing but the problem, the gun.
Again, the issue that for some reason nobody on the anti-gun train is avoiding is every single thing aside from the guns. What it seems like, and this is just, I'm trying to be fair about this and looking at this as a cultural touchstone of where the conversation goes. You have one side looking at multifaceted solutions. Do you arm schools? Do you implement locked door policies? Do you take a broader, more expansive look at people's mental health? What's happening in the home? Are so many different components that lead to this terrible, terrible outcome. And what can we do regarding all of these components and all of these variables to try and stop these terrible shootings from happening? And then you have another side, Joy Reid's side, Joy Reid specifically, saying it's one thing. In an alternate universe that doesn't exist and can't exist, I would love to run an experiment where we say, okay, fine, let's just take all of the guns away for a year. And if nothing bad ever happens, then you get to blame the one thing. But I guarantee you, if we were to run that social experiment, and again, it's not possible, but if we were able to run that experiment, I guarantee you something awful and something heinous would still happen. Therefore, completely obliterating your argument that the guns are the singular and only problem here. The refusal to talk about anything else besides guns is not going to lead us anywhere. Then she goes on to say this.
From mental health to arming teachers to more armed law enforcement in schools, every single thing, except making it harder to buy weapons of war.
Okay. And then she compacts a bunch of stuff into a verb or a phrase that isn't definable. What the heck is a weapon of war, Joy? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. This is the thing that I think I found most about this. Like I've said, I probably sound like a broken record saying this. I am new at this whole like public-facing speaking about the news thing. But the one thing that I think I have observed quite a bit is the idea that there is a huge disconnect of information. Bernie Sanders posted something over the weekend. We need to ban assault weapons. So I simply commented on it and saying, cool, what's an assault weapon? Would anyone like to define that for me? And 160 something comments later, nobody was able to give me an accurate, definitive definition of what the heck an assault weapon is. There were several people that were like, it's a semi-automatic weapon. Okay. Do you know that a lot of, if not most, all, and I don't know the makeup of what the 100 millions of guns there are in the United States, but I don't know the makeup of what is what. I probably should have statistically checked that, but I don't know. I'm lazy and bad at my job. But a huge portion of weapons are semi-automatic weapons. Are you saying we should get rid of all of semi-automatic guns? Does that include handguns? And then people talking about rifles. Well, we need to ban rifles because rifles are XYZ. Like, okay, well, I think homicides and violence is committed by handguns on a 20 times rate. So what are we talking about here? Is what I'm trying to get at. The only thing that I have to ask is, all right, give me some specifics. Give me some clarifiers in what you mean. And generally, it devolves into, you suck, which is not a good argument to have. Passing, quote unquote, common sense gun laws and law restrictions is not as easy as the left tends to think. Again, I'm open to conversations of any and all types. If you want to talk about banning, Marco Rubio said this last week. Hey, if you want to ban specific weapons, we can have that conversation. But this is much more difficult and much more complicated than, okay, well, we've banned AR-15s, therefore mass shootings will be done. Not that easy. Speaking of not that easy, it has been the life of the Disinformation Czar. Remember the disinformation board that Joe Biden tried to put in a couple weeks ago and then very, very quickly paused? Well, Joe Biden's disinformation czar, one Gina Jankowitz, was on NPR last week on their, what's it called? Fresh Air, I think the podcast is called, or the radio program on NPR, and said some things that you're like, okay, so we've got some pretty differing opinions on the ability of, one, the government, and two, the quote-unquote disinformation board. Listen to this clip from Gina Jankowitz, the former disinformation czar. I think the disinformation board lasted almost as long as CNN Plus. Not quite as long as Tom Brady's retirement, though, if I have my numbers right on that. But listen to this clip from the disinformation czar, in which she alludes to the fact that the disinformation board could possibly have stopped the mass shooting in Texas. Not specifically that one, but mass shootings in general. Listen to this.
And then I think another example that's important, that's also within the department's portfolio, especially given the events of the past few weeks, is that disinformation plays a role in radicalizing people to violence. You know, we're seeing continued mass shootings here in the United States, and in many of those cases, violent extremism is begotten by things people see on the internet. So that's the sort of thing that we would be looking to address.
You were personally attacked.
Okay. So again, the disinformation czar is saying, well, you know, the disinformation board could have or can try to stop any disinformation that would lead people down a violent pathway. Holy cow, dude, how freaking expansive do you think your power is? I mean, seriously. Like, that's a wild thing to say. And also a lot of responsibility that I wouldn't necessarily want to attribute to, quote unquote, the disinformation board. There's been a lot of headlines around this where it's saying Gina Jankowitz, former disinformation czar, says that she could have stopped the mass shooting in Texas. That is not what she said. It's kind of taken out of context. But again, like you just heard, she did say that maybe stopping some of this disinformation could help not lead people down the road of violence. Okay, if that's what you think, there's no one stopping you from thinking that. This is a free country. You're allowed to be wrong. But that is a stretch of the imagination. Continuing on to with more kind of stuff about the Uvalde shooting. I don't know what to do with this necessarily. The shooter's mother was stopped, I believe, by a CNN reporter and asked some questions in her car. Watch this and then we'll discuss. This is a little bit more of a difficult thing for me specifically, having been very much a private citizen up until a couple months ago. And then also now in this new role, understanding how the media does its job. Watch this.
We did just get some new information into CNN. The mother of the shooter was interviewed by CNN affiliate Televisa. Listen to what she had to say.
I have no words. I have no words to say. I don't know what he was thinking. He had his reasons for doing what he did, and please don't judge him. I only want the innocent children who died to forgive me.
What do you tell their families?
Forgive me. Forgive my son. I know he had his reasons.
What reasons could he have had?
To get closer to those children, instead of paying attention to the other bad things. I have no words. I don't know.
Only grief here.
Okay, so like you just saw, a reporter came up, interviewed the mother of the shooter, the Uvalde shooter. Let's get one thing straight right off the bat. There is no reason. There's no good reason at all. What she said, he had his reasons. Absolutely freaking no, he didn't. We should accept that without really having to explain any of that. What you said was ridiculous and terrible. That being said, it is an interesting culture that we have in which private citizens, in a lot of cases, are kind of held up to the standard of being able to talk their way out of interview questions. They're not politicians. Again, this is not at all providing any sort of forgiveness or anything of that nature to the shooter or even to his mother, who probably evidently did not provide the best home environment for this killer. That being said, it is difficult when a microphone gets shoved into your face and you have to talk about something that you're not familiar. You have to talk and not being familiar with how people will perceive what you're saying. I don't know. This one's difficult for me because I am not entirely sure that many people would be any better than this mother in this particular situation. Again, this does not excuse any of the actions at all. It doesn't excuse her actions for whatever role she might have played in his upbringing. There was some talk about drug use. He was living with his grandparents, I believe. So that doesn't excuse any of that. But at the same time, I don't want to sit here and blow her comments out of proportion because an otherwise private citizen said something crazy when a microphone got shoved in her face. I don't know, a little bit difficult for me on that one. I want to wrap up with this. This is not Uvalde related. This is its own interesting thing. Libs of TikTok, if you don't know their act, simply repost TikToks or videos from around the internet of liberals or libs in their verbiage saying things that they believe. They're not putting any sort of spin on it. They're not mischaracterizing them. They're not taking them out of context. They're just reposting videos. And one of the videos the libs of TikTok posted the other day, was this. A person describing transphobia. Watch this and let me know. Okay, we're going to together try and keep up with the mental gymnastics here in what is and is not transphobic, and then we'll talk about that term afterward, but trying to figure out what in the world this individual is saying. Watch this if you can stomach it.
I will explain all the ways that it is okay. Let's say that you're attracted to women. Well, if you're attracted to women, then you're attracted to cis women, trans women without bottom surgery, and trans women with bottom surgery. If you're attracted to VJ, then you could be attracted to a cis woman, a trans man without bottom surgery, a trans woman with bottom surgery, or a non-binary person, which, depending on their assigned gender at birth, having or not having had the surgery. But it is that exclusion that makes it transphobic. So, if you say that you like women and you like VJ, then that would mean that you're attracted to cis women and trans women who have had bottom surgery. It is just that exclusion that makes it transphobic. You can have a genital preference, but to exclude trans people is transphobic.
Okay. I think I understand this. I don't even know if I want to try and reiterate this. I think let's talk about the word phobia. This is what I've never understood, even when I was a kid growing up in Southern California. So I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like 2008 on the ballot. California passed Proposition 8, which was a ban on same-sex marriage. So these super, super lefty liberal state of California, as recently as I think 2008, maybe 2010, I'm not entirely sure what year it was, decided collectively as a voting populace to ban gay marriage. That's a whole thing in and of itself. But at the time, when I was 16, 17 years old, however old I was at that time, I remember the term homophobic being thrown around pretty much everywhere. I was a weird kid. I had a decently large vocabulary at 15 or whatever it was, and I knew what the word phobia was. I think I had learned about arachnophobia or whatever the spider phobia is, meaning that you're deathly afraid of spiders. And at the time when I was a kid, regardless of how anybody felt about whether or not gay marriage should be illegal in the super liberal state of California, I didn't understand that term, homophobia. Nobody was deathly afraid of gay people. They just had an opinion on whether or not homophobic marriage or homosexual relationships should be recognized by the state. I didn't understand it then, and I still don't understand it now. What is quote-unquote transphobia? You can disagree with the way somebody lives their life. Doesn't mean you're deathly afraid of them. That's what the term phobia means. I don't know, maybe I'm way off base here, but I didn't understand it when I was a kid, and I don't understand it now. But what this, again, particular individual is trying to explain is that if you say that you're attracted to women and you exclude trans women who haven't had the trans surgery, that makes you transphobic, which would mean you're deathly afraid of trans people. But if you can be attracted to biologically female, I can't believe I'm talking about this, parts, and that's fine, but you have to state that, which means that trans men who haven't had the surgery, you should also be open to dating them, or else you're transphobic, which phobia, again, means deathly afraid of people. I need to stop. That's what I make of this video. All right. That's going to do it for us today. It kind of went off the rails here a little bit. You know, it happens. Appreciate you tuning in on this Memorial Day. Remember all of those who have served and fallen in the defense of this great country, whatever it is that you're doing today. We'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting week this week. If you haven't already, give me a follow on social media, your Instagrams, your Twitters, your Facebooks, all of that sort of stuff. It's a busy travel week. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing here in terms of this show. Tomorrow we're in studio. The next day it's a travel day, but we're still going to do a show. Thursday and Friday, we're also traveling, and I'm not entirely sure whether or not we're going to do a show Thursday and Friday, but we'll keep you posted on that. For updates, go follow me on any of your social media platforms. That's going to do it for today. Appreciate you tuning in. Same time, same place tomorrow. Happy Memorial Day, and God bless America.